Welcome back, folks. Random Rod Shop. This is part 2 of our frame swap for the 71 International pickup. Thought I'd get the video out earlier, but life gets in the way sometimes. So I've been able to work on this a little bit here and there over the last couple of weeks, but it's, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. So I really didn't do any filming, but I didn't really do anything that you can't find in hundreds of videos. Thought I'd go over what I've gotten done up to this point to get the frame ready to set the cab on. The normal stuff for an LS, I pulled broken exhaust manifold bolts out. There was 2 on this side, there was 1 on the other side. I did the normal thing, put a washer on there, used a MIG, welded the washer, then stuck a nut on, welded the nut to the washer, and all 3 of them came out. It wasn't a problem. I've pulled the brake lines off. I'm not going to run the anti-lock brake system on this. I'm just going to run a standard brake system. The rear brake line was rusted through, so I was going to have to replace that anyway. No other reason than I just didn't want to run it. I've also pulled the fuel tank out of this. There's a lot of welding and cutting involved to put the cab mounts on. The rear cab mounts, especially on the rear cab mount on the driver's side, is right on top of the fuel tank. I know in the last video I said we were going to move them out to the outboard side of the frame, but I decided that in the end I'd prefer to have them where the factory location was. Not that you can't do it the other way, it's just I decided to put them on the inboard side, like the factory put the cab mounts on the International pickup. So because I was going to do a lot of cutting and welding and grinding, I took the fuel tank out, took the whole fuel system out. Probably more importantly to you guys is how I set up the cab mounts. Remember that in the last video I talked about that for me one of the most important measurements is from the center line of the front axle to the center line of the front cab mount. On the International pickup, that's 32.5 inches. So to transfer that to the Tahoe, you need to figure out where the center line of the Tahoe axle is. And on the Tahoe, it's on the front edge of the shock mount. Pull the camera down, zoom in, and show you where that is on the Tahoe, and then I'll talk about the other measurements. So on the Tahoe, the center line of the front axle is on this edge of the shock tower. Right, it took me a while to actually convince myself that was where it was at, but basically you stick the tape on this edge of the shock tower and pull it back. So that's what I did. I pulled back 32 inches from there. So I pulled back 32.5 inches. You can see the Sharpie line here on both sides. That sets where the center line of the front cab mount needs to be. So what you have to determine now is the layout for the cab itself. On the International pickup, the front cab mounts, and I got my cheat sheet here. The front cab mounts are 51.5 inches apart. The rear cab mounts are 36 inches apart, and there's about 38 3/8 distance between the front cab mounts and the rear cab mounts. So I got to admit it took a little more time than I thought it would. Levels and straight edges and strings, and finally got the locations of those 4 cab mounts. At that point you're about halfway done, because the other piece of what you need to do is you need to set the relative, the vertical height of the front cab mount relative to the rear cab mount. On the International pickup, the front cab mount is about a 1/2 inch below the top edge of the frame rail. The back cab mount is about 1 5/16 inches above the frame rail. So you need to hold those elevation differences, and at the same time you need to make sure that the surface of the cab mounts is parallel to the surface of the frame rail. So again, that all took quite a bit more time than I thought it was going to. In my case, put the angle finder on the frame in the front and back, left to right, and make sure that that angle is the same as the cab mount, front to back, left to right on both sides. Go back around, make sure the front cab mounts are a 1/2 inch below the frame rail, and the back cab mounts are 1 5/16 inches above the frame rail. It worked out kind of nice. I was able to use, for the front cab mounts, I was able to use the brackets that I'd cut off of the Tahoe frame. I just needed to shorten them up and square them off, you know, little grind, a little weld. That worked out well. On the back cab mounts, I had to actually manufacture those, so I just used some 11 gauge plate and made a C-channel. The legs of the C-channel go all the way around. Not a complicated bracket. Drilled a hole to match the polyurethane mounts I have. These are just old used ones, but at this point, dimensionally, they're in good shape, so that worked out. If you remember from the last video, the fuel tank set's right here. Later in the video, we're going to talk about my attempt to make that fuel tank fit anyway, so we'll get to that in a little bit. What's left to do at this point is to go ahead and brace up the rear cab mounts, finish welding them, finish welding up the front cab mounts. Once I get both cab mounts welded up, what I want to do is set the tank in there, see if I can get it to fit. I think it's going to sort of fit at this point, but I still have some more work to do. I did some preliminary work on the tank, filmed the work on the tank earlier, so I'm going to cut that in. It's a short clip. You'll notice I changed shirts. I filmed that earlier. I think I've got it to the point it sort of fits. It needs some more work on it, so I'm going to put that clip in right here so you can see how I went about trying to modify the tank so it would fit where I needed to go. The issue is that the rear cab mount is where the fuel tank wants to be. The way the tank is made sets in this saddle, but the tank itself comes up, and so the tank is interfering with this mount, or probably more correctly, this mount is interfering with where the tank wants to be. So let me put the clip in and I'll get back to you. So at this point, need to try to figure out whether the fuel tank will fit in the frame. So I'm going to try something. I'm not sure it's actually going to work. Since the Tahoe has a poly tank in it, I'm going to try to heat the thing up and push it down, hold it until it cools so that it will clear the rear cab mount. So I'm going to turn the camera and show you sort of the process I'm thinking about doing, and we'll see if it works. I've tested a little bit, looks like it'll work, but we're going to try it. So hang on. So the idea is to heat this up. I've got the halogen light on there, and heat this up. I've got the halogen to sort of soak the plastic. What I need to do is I need to lower the two high spots. I've sort of worked on this area a little bit. Not sure this is going to work. This is a multi-layer tank. Heating it up seems to delaminate it a little bit. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but what we're going to do is we're going to test it. I'm going to push these areas down, then I'm going to fill it up with water, and we're going to see what it looks like. Well, it looks like it's going to take a while. I'll get back to you. So hopefully you saw in the clip that my approach was to get a halogen lamp and heat soak the plastic, and then get a heat gun and heat the area that I needed to mush, right? And try to mold the tank. What I discovered is that the tank is a multi-layer. I did a little research on it, and I should have done the research before I started mushing with the tank, but oh well. So the tank's a multi-layer. The outer coating, the black poly, and I don't know, polyethylene, polybutylene, I don't know what it is, plastic, black plastic outside. There's a barrier for fuel on the inside. As I was heating it up, I could tell that they were delaminating. I don't know if that's good or bad at this point. I haven't tested the tank, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get the tank. Actually, I'm gonna take the tractor and I'm gonna push this thing up closer to the shop so I've got electricity. I'm gonna put the tank in, hold it up where it's at, probably set the heat gun and the lamp back up and try to clearance the tank for this mount. Once it's all clearanced, then it's cooled off, because if you don't let it cool off before you release however you're holding it, right? So you heat it up, you push it down where you want it, you have to let it cool off, otherwise it'll just come back. So once it cools off, I'll stick it in there, make sure it's clearanced, then I'm gonna stand it up over here and I'm gonna fill it up with water and see if it leaks anywhere. If it doesn't leak, then we're gonna bolt the thing in and see if we can put a cab on, because I'm really ready to see the cab on this truck. See if I got the mounts in the right location, see if the fender lines up. Hopefully I got all the measurements right, but we'll see. So I'll get back to you. All right, so I think I'm gonna pull you off, so I apologize for the shaky cam here, but I'm gonna pull you off and show you the tank and where the problem area is. Then I'll get set up and we'll see if we can moosh the tank a little bit more. All right, so you can see I've mooshed it here, I've pushed it down here, right? I heated it up, pushed it down, heated it up, pushed it down. I needed to move those. I need to push those down because it looks like that the cab is actually going to touch right there if I don't push those down. This was up probably 1.5 inches higher than what it shows right there. This was up not quite that much, probably maybe 1 inch. So you can see that right now it's hitting the cab mount that I made right here. And looks like I can take a little bit more off the leg of the cab mount. So I'll get the grinder out and I'll cut that off. I'll clearance that a little bit, and then we'll see if I need to heat this up a little more. It looks like I probably will, because this needs to seat all the way up against this saddle bracket right here. So I've got quite a bit to go. It also looks like I haven't got this, looks like I haven't got the tank all the way over right here. So let me pull that over. Again, I apologize for the shaky cam going on here. Okay, so it looks like we've got it up here. We're still hitting the bracket here. And to get it up, oh, that's just a finger width over there. That will actually pull up, I believe. The problem we've got is right here. So I need this area right here to be pushed down some more so this tank will set up where it's supposed to go. Now, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, let's have a look at how low the tank is setting, because it seems to me it might be possible to put a rubber spacer or something under here so that I don't have to push this tank down as far. Let's have a look at that. So I'm gonna move the camera down under and let's see if we can have a look at what's going on underneath there. So the tank currently is right here. So we've got probably 1 inch it's hanging down. So that gap between the tank and the saddle bracket. Looks like it's about 1.5 inches on this side. I really think I need to get that down some more. So I'm gonna put the camera back up on the stand, get the light, get the heat gun. I think this time I'll put a jack under the tank, see if I can apply some pressure from the bottom to push it up, and let's see what that does. In the end, all I can do is, you know, have to get another tank. All right, let me shut you off. I've got a block, got a jack, I got a 1x12 piece of a 1x12 underneath the tank. Got the screw jack screwed up, putting a little bit of pressure on the tank itself. This is a 500 watt halogen bulb. Got the glass off of it, so it puts out a lot of heat. What I hope to do is to just heat soak this area for a little bit. Then the idea is to bring the heat gun in. Bring the heat gun in and heat this area and screw the jack. Is it gonna work? I don't know, but we're gonna find out. If I can figure, I'm gonna go ahead and tape this. If I can figure out how to fast, you know, do the time lapse thing, I'll do that. Otherwise, what you're gonna get is a clip here, clip there, you know, like that. So I'll do my best to figure that out. So here we go. To quote Jonathan W., I guess I'm getting a CAT scan done. Come on, buddy, that light's hot. Well, I don't know that I'm happy about that. Don't even know if I just put a hole in it. But if I get it mounted up there, at least we learned how not to do it. And next time, I think I've got another tank down in the pasture. I think next time we can do a better job at it. But for right now, I think I can mount the tank. I can put gas inside the tank and we can get this thing started, which really what I want to do. Over the years, I've migrated from making everything as good as I can make it along the way to let's get it on wheels and let's get it running, and then we can go back and we can fix other stuff. A lot of you, I assume, will disagree with that. A lot of video, you know, YouTube videos, they are meticulous about every step of the way. But to be honest with you, I've got projects that's been on the hook for a long time because of that. And on this project, I want this project on wheels and I want it driving. Then we can figure out what we're gonna do to the details. It's not that hard to pull cab and front end off this thing. We can come back and we can clean everything up and we can fix whatever's wrong with it. But right now, I want to get the cab on it and I want it driving up and down the driveway so we can sort of check everything out, make sure brakes work, whatever we got to do to steering. So let's let that cool. I'm going to put the mount back on it, drag this thing back out there, and maybe I can convince Ralph. Come here, Ralph. You gonna go get the tractor? What do you mean your legs are too short? Well, you never told me that. Okay, I guess I'll drive the tractor. All right, all right. Well, that was a fail. I guess I'm not surprised, but I got overly exuberant with the prying and not enough heat, and anyway, put a hole in the gas tank. The good news is we now know what it needs to look like, so I need to get another gas tank and we need to try it again and be a little more delicate. Oh well. Let's get the cab on this thing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get the brackets, cab mount brackets welded up. I actually don't know how the camera acts to welding, so I'm going to shut you off and I'll bring you back when I've got it all welded up. Okay, I got it all welded. I think we're ready to set the cab on. Ralph decided his legs were too short, so I'm gonna have to put the tractor on, or put the cab on. So let me get it on. Okay, let's see if we can get it shoved back in there so we can actually do some real work on it. It's been a long day. We got the cab setting on there. I think we'll pick this up in the next video. You know, like, subscribe. I appreciate you watching. See you next time.